Okay. Can you hear me? Yes. The speaker's working? Okay. And you can see the audio over there, right? So there should be some lines going back and forth. Yes? No? Nothing? Okay.
There are some green lines.
Yes. We'll see. Yeah. That's good. Okay, great. So hello, everyone. I think I know some of you over the years. I see Kasi over there. Paul, Lance is here. Bich, thanks for coming. Quentin, thanks for coming and presenting. And all of you guys, thanks for coming. This is the second of the series of talks that we are doing on ResearchNet. So ResearchNet, we launched in, August 4th, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So that was our MVP version 1. This is the second release. Will not take up as much time as we did last time, talking about for more than 2 hours. So I'm going to restrict myself, and we'll have a small demo of where we are, and we'll have another one December 17th. So we'll keep on showing you as we progress with the platform, the products that we're building, and so on and so forth. Okay, so having said that, that's me, by the way, if you haven't realized. Okay, I have 2 screens here. Is that moving forward? Okay, that's more about me. Okay, so we cannot talk about ResearchNet unless we talk about the Open Development Platform. Open Development Platform is absolutely open. Our intent is to make it end-to-end open source. We will release the code at some point. And this is our framework that builds everything else. So this is basically the factory that builds everything else. This is the bottom line of the open platform, the generation, and we are generating things through pattern engineering, not directly through AI. So AI is connected on top of it, and from there we are connecting to AI, but it's not generated directly through AI. That's why it's, I believe it's more reliable and stuff. And of course, AI Alliance. AI Alliance is sponsoring this event, and as well as Microsoft and AITP for making it available to everyone. And thanks to AI Collective. They're all similar names. So anyways, so I think I got everyone right. So AI Alliance is a big, huge organization with lots of organizations inside it. It's like a collaboration with lots of organizations inside it, one being open development. So we are part of it too, started by IBM and Meta, but now we have 100 plus members over there. So Center for Advanced Studies, I used to head this at one point. I don't anymore, I left IBM, as most of you know. And we have centers all over the world. We used to have a huge presence, and then we have a little less. That's Chicago. That's my center, actually. And then we work with universities and try to do things with universities, professors, and students. Okay, so what is ResearchNet? Just if you're not familiar with it, it's an automation platform. We're also trying to see if we can do process engineering with AI and all that. And we're trying to see how we can gather information for academics and research, process papers and all that. I'll come to the framework again. And eventually everyone has to do this, support and services, right? So for ResearchNet. So what is the problem? We don't have enough resources to do the job. There's always a problem. We see the quality of code that is generated is poor through AI. So that is obviously my opinion. And I am a lifelong coder. So I would not put some of the code that's being generated. ChatGPT is much better now with version 5, but I would not put that in production. And that's how the whole thing started. Right, so lifecycle management and all that stuff is built into one platform. That is basically the hope of doing all this. Okay, So it covers a lot of things, and I've covered this in the previous thing. So how can we get a production level code? How can we do complex business applications? That is our goal. How can we patternize from small little applications and pieces of applications all the way to, say, integration with SAP and other very, very complex structures? That is the goal. So one of the things that we would eventually get to, we're obviously not there yet, is to look at Amazon, Google, IBM. All of them have their own architecture centers with their reference architectures, and we want to automate that. So that's our final goal. Okay. So I wouldn't go through a lot of this stuff. Okay. So this is our main use case. This is how we started. How are we getting all these research papers from? So when you're doing some research, you have to gather a lot of research papers, read a lot of research papers, takes a lot of time before you can even start doing anything. And a lot of these things can be done through AI very, very easily now with LLMs and all that. So as you'll see, we'll do a quick demo of the update to what we did in the first release. Much better, much more stable now. And we are taking research papers, and then we are processing them. We are trying to see what the interrelationship is, not just for the names and all that, but the contents, and trying to understand that. So we are developing our own NLU sort of systems, and that's not in this release. That's going to take time, obviously. Probably early next year, we are targeting to release that. A lot of work is going on in that area. So we want to address all these use cases. The developer does the testing, then the tester does the main level testing, goes to production. How do we support someone in production? If there's issues and stuff, can we actually look into the issues, give suggestions quickly to whoever is supporting that, having CI/CD pipelines, and so on. And also, if someone has SRS documents, we can process that and create 3-tier architecture at the least, right? And then we'll look into other architectures that people want to do. This is the pyramid that I showed last time also. So it is not just about having some code. Yes, we can generate some code. I can get some samples from here and there, plug it together, create a hackathon. Maybe it'll work, maybe it's not going to work, maybe it works now. However, when I put it into production, I have to be absolutely sure it works 100% of the times. It has to be tested properly, it has to be consistent, it has to be deterministic. Okay, so that's the pyramid. On the top of it, what I call the pattern engineering. What is pattern engineering? It's nothing new. It was started by the 3 amigos, whom I love so much. I got to meet 2 of them, Jim Ramba and Grady Butch. I never met Jacobson. He never joined IBM, so unfortunately I couldn't meet him. But anyways, the 3 amigos started UML, all these case tooling concepts and all that stuff. It goes way back into that case tooling and how we can patternize it. And then I have my own patented pattern engineering tool, which I use. So I used to work with some of these guys from Rashma as well. So that was a great experience working with them. But anyways, so what's our solution? Very simple. Automate processes using agents. We want to combine LLM models with pattern engineering. So that is kind of where all our stuff you'll see leads to. So LLMs can go understand how we are speaking, it can answer and all that stuff. But when it comes to structured stuff and a consistent output, that's where pattern engineering comes in much better. And we need to connect the two, right? So yes, we can fill up forms, we can fill up XMLs. Everything I have is my own specification behind the scenes. So we have this huge specification of models for every single thing that we do. Every new thing that we'll do, we'll create a model. So yes, you can go and type in all the values inside the XML, generate everything. You don't need LLMs. But if you want to speak to it, yes, it'll understand the context of what you're saying. Eventually, we're still working on the NLU part of it. But eventually, it's going to connect back and fill up those forms for you so you can, okay, I want to change the color or something very simple. That's fine. You want to change or add some more integrations to it. It's it's fine. If you have the plugin, it's going to take that pattern from the plugin and plug it into this. So that's the idea behind all of this. I'm getting a call, so I don't know if it's a pizza. So let me get this. Can be talking about technology as much as we want, but we will be hungry. So let's get the pizza. Let's talk about some more stuff. Okay, and all this observability and deployments and all that stuff, we want to just patternize everything and build it into the system. That's the whole idea. Once you have the system, you can generate everything from it. Okay, so what are the main ideas and concepts that we are bringing in? The main innovations. This is at the bottom of everything. Vortex pattern engine, right? Something that I wrote. Deterministic NLP generation, that's what we mean by that is, can you generate things over and over again as the same exact consequence of the generation? If that's not the case, it doesn't work for code at least, right? Because you have to have tested code and go through the whole life cycle to make sure it's ready for production. So that is the other thing. And then deep NLU search, this goes into the idea of understanding documents, right? Research papers, you'll see we have a line. We did some small experiments. The state of the art is not good enough to actually understand everything inside the papers and relate everything. You can relate everything, but that's not what you want. You want to relate the relevant thing. And how do you understand it's relevant? So we'll have ontologies and knowledge graphs and all that stuff behind the scene, and we're doing some experiments to see whether it's actually something that is usable or not, right? So yes, you can connect a bunch of things, but may not be very meaningful. So that's where some of the research is. Okay, so this is the whole pipeline. Let's go through it one more time. So what we are trying to do is, for the whole pipeline, get archive. Why archive? Archive is free. We can go to any other place. It's just calling their APIs and getting the documents. Springer is not always free. I have to ask someone. I don't have access to all these materials, or if it's a ISO specification or something, I always don't have access to all that. So archive, we can get, say, 10 documents, 20 documents, eventually hundreds of documents, doesn't matter. As long as our algorithm works, the understanding works, we can create knowledge graphs. That's what we want to do. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is parse the document properly. So dockling, we played around with a few things. I actually love dockling. It is parsing the document very, very well, all the different parts, and it was created, it's open source, and it was created by the same guys who created Watson Discovery, IBM Watson Discovery. So the research guys actually released this, and it works very well. The only problem is it just parses. The other stuff, like they also say, oh, okay, we can do OCR and all that. Okay, my opinion, okay, anyways, I wouldn't rely on that. Okay, so yes, there you'll see there's another OCR data processing line. So what I would love to do is, people should actually publish code and data along with the papers. They never do. So the problem is we are now reverse engineering from what the paper actually says, what the data is in charts and stuff, to understand what the heck we can get to from the paper, right? So we can only get to certain points, but even that is not very good, right? So we've used Gemma and stuff, and it's okay. So we need more, right, to understand the graphs and all that. So that's the OCR line. I showed what we achieved with Gemma 3 last time, but this time we're not focusing on that. Then we want to create some knowledge graphs and some ontologies to refer to those knowledge graphs and stuff. And eventually, we want to understand if we can generate some process models out of that and some relational databases. So if we have the relational database, I can create a 3-tier architecture very, very easily because they're all related. So whatever you see on the screen has to have the data stored somehow in the database, so that's related. And how you do that is through the API, again, related, so they're all related. This is not the problem. This is already done in the system. So I already demonstrated that last time. I would not get to it today. But getting to this one is what the problem is. So if you see those little icons with like bulbs and like a magnifying glass, that means we're doing research on those 2 boxes. Okay, we're not there yet. Okay. Knowledge graph, last time we used Neo4j. We haven't moved away from Neo4j. I love memgraph because they have a clustering mechanism as well. We haven't yet moved to memgraph. Maybe in December, if we get there, we'll show you and give you some idea whether it works, not works, or okay, how much is the hype, how much is not the practicality and things like that. We've done one thing, which is we've moved away from PG vector. We, of course, last time we demonstrated with PG vector. We still support PG vector, but we've this time we'll demonstrate with Milvus. And we have a demo that we have actually saved, because last time it was taking a long time, right? Communication. My developer, my head developer, is in India, so he was typing in commands from India. It was getting processed on my laptop. Yes, my laptop has pretty good resources, I'll say, but not enough to run things very, very fast. Our idea is to run everything locally. So you control the data. Nothing is going outside. So if you want to run it in your data center with good GPUs, yes, it'll run faster, and you have total control over it. And the other advantage is not just controlling the data, you can now run many, many models that are absolutely free. There are many open source models like DeepSeek and all these other models. Get it from Hugging Face or some other place and run it locally. Saves you, it's a huge cost saving. If you add up all the cost on the cloud, running locally with a few GPUs, that's all you need. Again, last time I argued, having bigger and bigger models always don't give you very good results. Yes, if you have there's an optimal size, I'll say, beyond which, if it's smaller, it doesn't give you very good results. But if you go too high, it doesn't give you that much benefit either. Because what I'm dependent on is not the data that is in the models embedded. What I'm dependent on is the vector database, right? So I want to retrieve data and correlate the data from the vector database. So I'm not so much dependent on the data in the model. And as the model grows, you also have more hallucination. It's a bigger problem, right? So I need consistent data. And to refer to those each and every points in the data, which I can do through a vector database, okay? So these are basically the ideas. We want to talk to the system, so why not, we chat with Discord all the time. So we are having all our commands go through Discord. Like any other channel, we'll send a command, you'll see in the demo. Go through our own agentic framework, which is based on Google ADK. Then it goes into, but we can interact with other systems as well. Okay. Now we are getting closer to the demo. And how am I doing with time? Okay. So this improved system is what we're going to demo. In the demo, you'll see there's a message. So this is our archive command that goes in from Discord. What it's going to do is go through the system, download some files from archive, then process them, put it into the vector database, which is now Milvus, do the vector embedding and all that stuff, and then do that. And then another part goes in here, and it goes into to the knowledge database. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Oh, okay. I guess it started. Oh, hold on. I think the sound is off. Again, no one can hear Diptam. Unfortunately for Diptam, he's in India. Last time we were communicating over Zoom as he's typing in commands, if you were here the last time, but that's why we recorded it. Hold on. Let me try to see if, is it? Sound is off.
Let's start with a simple command, archive. Let's search for document related to Earth. This starts the process of finding documents related to Earth or the search query, and then starts the process of docking and milvus. Docking is used to convert the documents into required formats, and milvus is our go-to vector database.
So if you notice, this is the milvus log basically. So that you don't have to see what it's in the log. Basically, it's parsing all the data, embedding all the data, and going into the milvus database. The command is sent from Discord. So this is the Discord interface.
Docking has now processed all the documents with zero failed processing. And it's now hand over all the document to the KB agent for knowledge base creation. On the other hand, the milvus system is still going on, vectorizing all the documents so that the RAG can use the sector to answer better.
So all of them got processed, looks like.
Now, milvus has done processing all the documents, so we can start querying the database. Let's ask for a fact about Earth and see what it returns. This now triggers the RAG pipeline, which retrieves relevant document from the milvus vector store and then use Google's ADK and their Gemma model for answering the query. We use the embedding Gemma for all the embedding related tasks. Not only it answers the question, but it also cites the sources so that you know the answer is correct. And it's grounded in sources.
Okay, so that's it. Quick demo.
Let's start with a simple
let's
command,
go to it. Okay.
archive. Let's search for document related to Earth. This starts the process of finding documents related to Earth or the search query, and then starts the process of docking and milvus. Docking is used to convert the documents into required formats, and milvus is our go-to vector database.
Sometimes you just have to be patient. They're not human beings. They take a little bit of time.
LeLumin has now processed all the documents with zero failed processing. And it's now hand over all the document to the KB agent for knowledge base creation. On the other hand, the Milvus system is still going on, vectorizing all the documents so that the RAG can use the sector to answer better.
Yeah, but quite honestly, it's going through a bunch of documents, right? So if you have to physically read the documents, it's going to take longer, right? So yeah, it's still a huge advantage, and the advantage will grow as the number of documents you're processing grows, right? So if you can process 100...
Now, Milvus has done processing all the documents, so we can start querying the database. Let's ask for a fact about Earth and see what it returns.
And this is of course
This now
with
triggers the
limited
RAG
resources
pipeline,
that we have,
which
right?
retrieves relevant document from the Milvus vector store and then use Google's ADK and their Gemma model for answering the query. We use the embedding Gemma for all the embedding related tasks.
Oh, it's running it again, it looks like, right? Yeah, okay. So yeah, I was thinking that was it, but yeah, it ran it twice, looks like. Okay, so let me show you another new thing. This is brand new. It's not an improvement over the pipeline that we showed last time. This is much, much faster, much, much better. It's going through MQ, so it handles errors and all that stuff properly. We are using active MQ Artemis, which is again open source. Now, this is a totally different use case. Okay, so this actually we created for our good friend Robin Troft, which is a company in the UK. My friend and client, you can say as well. They're going to use our technology to process documents and all that stuff. Again, through pattern engineering. This is not so much of AI stuff, but this is a very, very useful thing. So everyone likes putting things into Excel sheets, right? So you put data into an Excel sheet and say, okay, how do you process that data, right? So now you have to put it in a database, you have to run queries, doing all that stuff. Now, what if we take that Excel sheet, patternize it, and you can map it from an Excel sheet to something that is very, very runnable at runtime. So that's the runnable version of all the data is being mapped through this XML into another XML called the variance XML, that's what I call it. And from that variance XML, now it's becomes nothing but a pattern engineering problem, right? So now you can replace anything inside any doc, including, this is the example for PowerPoint, so it can be docs or anything else that you can now generate without, with absolute 100% accuracy by replacing all these variants now because you have processes. So as you can see, the people are logged into the website sending data. You can now process those data very, very efficiently through this into your presentation and generate reports or whatever you want to do, right? For each and every individual, right? So, and that can cover many, many use cases. Like say you're doing legal documents or, and stuff like that, right? Say NDA. I have to do a lot of NDAs, so anyways. So NDAs, you want to replace the entity name, the name of the signing person and all that. Yeah, you can use this and do that very, very easily. As people are signing in, logging into the system, sending the data, it comes in as a JSON, gets converted. Now, this also handles it with an internal in-memory database. So now you can run any query through that XML mapping, and you can run coordinated subqueries also. So it doesn't matter, it can be very, very complex, but it can be done very easily now, and you can generate all this stuff, which I think is a very, very useful use case, which came out of our friend's use case, Robin Troft. We are 90% there. They're going to production soon. So that's Sid and Chappie. So Sid is basically Andy Siddle. They did a little speech last time also. And they have this tool called the seasons of leadership. They do presentations. You can get a report. You can assess yourself. I would encourage everyone to go and assess them. There's a free version, and then, of course, everything has a paid version too. But you can go with the free version and see how you score, right? It's also sort of a fun thing to do. And then you can get serious. Okay, you can even engage these guys to do more deep studies and do workshops with their whole organization. Right, so that's what they're doing. So we're building the application for them. And yeah. Let's move on to the next use case. So this is something I stated last time also. We're working on this. We're 90% there. That's why I couldn't do a demo. But again, this is our objective. So if you haven't seen the last presentation, we want to integrate all the way down to any of these frameworks, and you can patronize them or you can integrate with these frameworks. Easily, and this is our message structure internally, so it can handle basically anything, and that's the secret behind handling SAP or anything else. Now, where is this whole agentic framework and all this stuff going? So we have already organized this, and there are different providers. So we will support all of this eventually. From the AI router, there's something called Open Router. If you guys have used Open Router, that can go to different hosts, right, serving hosts, and then you have providers, and then you have AI models. So all of that can be supported, and you can run all of them locally as well. So, so that's our goal, right? So if you can run locally, then you lose control of the data, right? So that is always a very important thing. Okay, these are the different modules. I wouldn't go through it again. Just as reference context, these are the keywords I use all the time and what they represent. These are different modules inside the system. So some of them are doing error handling, some of it, they're doing the orchestration, right, which I'll show on our next iteration, which will be on December 17th. Okay, and now I would like to invite my friend Jay to come over and talk about Optim Tech, and we're doing some partnership with them, and yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, stage is yours.
All right. You guys can hear me okay, right?
Oh, let me give you this. This is a little bit bulky,
Okay.
so I'd rather hold it.
All right. Good evening, everybody. How's everyone doing? Great. My name is Jay Kapoor. I represent Optime Tech. In fact, I live in Miami, so only Ron could get me here during winter. Okay. Ron says jump, I say how high. So he's a good friend. So thank you, Ron. I appreciate you inviting me here. Thank you very much. And thanks to Michael Michel, is he around, for actually opening the facility for us. So big thanks to him. Pizza, okay. All right. So I was reading a joke. Husband and wife are sitting, and husband tells a joke to wife. Wife laughs, Siri laughs, Alexa laughs. What does that mean? That means technology is listening. But a lot of people are worried, technology, AI, they're going to gobble up jobs. By the way, that's a joke, so we're supposed to laugh, okay? I should have given you a cue. Maybe I'm not a good joke teller or whatever. But my take on AI is very simple. It's AI plus HI. How many of you know HI, HI? What's HI? Artificial intelligence and human intelligence plus purpose equals better systems and brighter humans. So if we can use AI with HI and purpose, it can definitely lead to a lot of good things. So we at Optime Tech, we call ourselves a full service IT company. We do solutions. Give us a problem, we'll find you an IT solution. We do services. Show us a system and it's not working well, we'll show you how it works well. We do support 24/7, 365. We do staffing and training as well. We have our footprint here in the US, Canada, North America. Oh, thank you, Michael. I was looking for you. I just wanted to give a shout out to Michael for thanks for opening the facility. Thank you. So give him a big hand, actually. Today is Michael's day off, and just for us, he has taken the time away from his family and come here. So thank you so much. So we do, as I said, full service IT. We do the staffing, training, services, solution. And we're very excited to partner with Ron and the entire ResearchNet team. We thrive on partnerships. In fact, I was saying that we have footprint here in Asia, in Hyderabad, Pune, and Trivandrum, if you understand those cities. And recently we opened up in Panama City, Panama. So we do onshore, offshore, and nearshore. And as I was saying that we thrive on partnerships, and one of the partnerships that we're looking forward to is with Ron and his ResearchNet team. So if you guys are thinking of scaling, with Ron, we are more than happy to back you up to give you the better systems and brighter humans, okay? With that, I'll pass it back. Oh, maybe I'll just quickly show some of the clients that we have worked with. Sorry.
Actually, it's this one, it's PDF.
Okay, so.
Let me bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, it basically talks about what I just said. But I just wanted to show the last slide, some of the clients that we have worked with and we are working with. If you can bring that up.
Oh, I have to take this on this side. Okay, I got it. Finally. Okay, there you go.
So will this?
Yeah.
So that's basically us. That's some of the places that we are in, and some of the companies that we have added value to over the last 2 decades. So that's us, and it was a pleasure talking to you. And back to Ron. Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for coming over from sunny Florida and Miami. So I love Chicago, but I would love to visit Miami from time to time. Okay, let me bring this back up. And one thing to mention that Optim Tech will be the first organization whom we are going to train on ResearchNet and ODP. And I think Yash is part of ResearchNet as well, and Diptam. They're going to help you train some of the folks at Optim Tech and use all the automation so you can deliver faster, right? So that's the whole idea behind it. Okay, that's our core team. So I think Abid was there before. Abid is a professor at Northwestern as well as University of Chicago. He couldn't be here. He's teaching some classes in the evening. And of course, Sanjay went back to India. He lives in Pune, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I always get confused. But yeah, and that's our little team. You know most of them from before. Oh, sorry. Diptam is on the call. Hey, Diptam, you want to say hi to the crowd? Diptam, still there on Zoom? Can you hear me? Oh, I think he can't hear me because I've muted Zoom. Oh, there we go. Hey, Diptam, can you hear me? Hey, still awake?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'll hold it close to the thing. Just say hi. They already heard you doing the demo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hey everyone, my name is Diptam Mukhopadhyay. I'm a senior CSC student at Techno International in town. Been working with Ron for the last 3 years and on, and been working on multiple projects, now collaborating on ResearchNet.
Sounds good. Thanks, Diptam. I'm gonna mute it again. And the next person who is here is Yash. You want to say a few words? If I can move this, yes. And that's Yash and Carly. I don't see Carly here today, but okay. So she's been helping me from behind. Yash. take it.
Hi everyone, my name is Yash. I am a recent graduate in product management and AI from Carnegie Mellon. Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Yash. Thanks for all the stuff. Maybe you can do the next demo next on Wednesday. And Carly's been very helpful. You'll see her setting up stuff all the time for me. Daria is here. So there's Daria. She's a professor at UIC, right around the corner. And we're working on this very interesting project called Cognitive Pathway Extreme, which I mentioned last time. We're still working on it. We're making little progress. That's Shantanu. He was here last time. He lives in San Diego, so he went back. I can't call him every time, so he's going to kill me. So, and that's me, by the way. But this is the main guy from KTH, from Sweden. And we are trying to build a psychology application to understand how people think, how patients, and compare it with patients, and to diagnose actual patients with data collected. So that's going to be a very interesting game. Hopefully you guys would love playing the game too. Thanks to help from Daria, we'll make it an interesting game, okay? Okay, Illinois Tech, Copland. So, by the way, the alpha release, I couldn't get to the alpha release tonight, but soon, in a couple of weeks, we'll have the alpha release, and we'll offer it to Copland, Polsky, I'm coming to, and of course to Jay's company, Optime Tech. Did I get that right? It's a tongue twister sometimes for me. Okay, and that's Polsky. So, okay, this is something I want to mention. So this is the largest IBM CAS ResearchNet project underway. We have 120 students. We are actually onboarding from tomorrow, day after tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm at a conference, so day after tomorrow. So yeah, that's going to be exciting. They're going to be contributing a lot of stuff. And these are some of the events I've done in the future. Won't go through them. And thank you, everyone. So I think the pizza's here, so enjoy some pizza, and thank you. And hope to see you guys on December 17th. That's the 030 version.
Hello? Hello? Okay. They have, but he said that one's broken, so I have to hold it as well. So I figured this one's easier to hold than the other one. So I'm going to click with my left and hold with my right. I don't know if maybe I should switch, because let's see how well I can pat and rub at the same time, right? Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be here to talk to you about AI, or more specifically, how you can be the 5% that MIT was talking about, the ones that actually were successful at rolling out AI. But before I get started, my birthday that is about to be, or maybe I've already passed because we're recording, so I don't want to have it on record for all those, security guys. So the funny thing that happened to me on the way to the forum, I actually was joking to my husband, telling him, it's like, you know what, I should ask ChatGPT how old I am. And then I should go to and then tell everybody, according to ChatGPT, I'm 24 years old. And then I'm like, you know what does ChatGPT think of me, right? So I asked ChatGPT, how old am I? Unquote. And it actually tells me how old it thinks I am. It went through the whole analysis. I'm telling you right now, you should go to ChatGPT and ask it how old you are. Because if you think about it, I've been using ChatGPT for almost everything, right? So it actually knows about what I'm querying, what I'm working on, and everything. And it tells me based upon your query, based upon this and that. It actually triangulated and gave me a relatively good estimate. It even told me that I'm an INTJ, borderline ENTJ. ENTJ. The E is because of communication. I'm like, wait a minute. It tells me that I am not passionate enough about technology. So I'm like, and plus two, that I don't have a technical background. So I went to Gemini because I do all of my writing and everything in Gemini. And I asked Gemini, how old am I? Gemini was like, that's a fun question. We cannot answer it. In other words, it would not go anywhere near it with a 10-foot pole. So I'm trying to figure out, it's like, what in the world did Gemini and the guardrails, how is it different from ChatGPT? First question. Second question is like, it's either that or figure out that I'm female, and it would not get anywhere near it. So anyway, if you guys go in and start querying and ask your, ChatGPT, how old am I? We can compare notes afterwards, because I love to hear about it. Yes? Do you know what? I was going to try that next, because I wanted to test to see how far it would go. So with that, let's go and
Can I interrupt you for
Sure.
1 second? Can you please share through the Zoom link? I'll send you the Zoom link. If you don't have it.
Okay.
Yes.
Should I?
Yeah, let me email or what's convenient.
Okay. I guess I could set it up well. Everybody set. Okay. So in today's agenda, we're going to step through the entire, at a very high level, product life cycle. What I will not be doing is going to go through and try to teach you how to go in and identify a use case or how to build AI or any kind of system 101. That's not what we're here for. Today, what I'm going to try to do is to distill how has AI changed the way we try to identify use case, for an example. Or how do we go in and measure ROI that's different from the way we traditionally do things. right? So it's very instilled, it's very short. I can actually write a book on every single one of those topics. So I'm going to try to attempt to do that in 15 to 20 minutes because I want to leave some room at the end for you guys to ask questions. If you want to ask questions during the meeting, I will try to answer them too as well because I love interactions. Okay? So to start with, I think it's very important that everybody should have AI literacy. So in other words, try to understand what is AI about and actually try to learn it. I'm not talking about going out there and ask ChatGPT, what is AI? I'm talking about like actually try to understand what does that mean exactly. So what you're going to find today is that when I go in and talk about, and this is very important, some of you probably already know this, some of you don't, but I'm going to reiterate throughout the entire session, right? Because we learn by reiteration and by examples. So the difference between traditional systems when it comes to coding is that you know the input that's coming in is rule-based and you know the outcome. And once you roll it out into production, you're done, unless there's a bug or an upgrade, right, in general. When it comes to AI, if you think about it, using ChatGPT or any of the LLM as an example, in reality, at the end of the day, it's a very complicated mathematical formula. And for ChatGPT, the last time I looked, it's 1.5 trillion parameters. So you think about 1.5 trillion parameters going through and feeding this complicated mathematical formula. How many of you, even if you wrote the code yourself, wrote the formula yourself, would know what the output is going to be like? What among those parameters, 1.5 trillion parameters, has changed the outcome? The other key thing is that with AI, it's probably, I can't pronounce this, probabilistic. So I need to practice that. I do have a speech impediment. You guys don't always hear it. So what that means is probability. It goes out and tell you what is the probability of this answer. So it's never, ever going to go in and tell you, like when you go in and you query it, some of you have already noticed, it'll give you a slightly different answer each time. And that's what you're seeing. The only time when that actually give you a more accurate answer is what's called deterministic AI, but we're not going to get into that today. So with that, so what does that mean when those two things are different? From a governance point of view, from a leadership, from a board point of view, you need to make sure that the big difference is that you need to have a model and a data lifecycle governance. So you need to actually go in and have an oversight throughout the entire life cycle. It is not good enough to go in and say, you know the input and the output, the endpoints. You have to know the whole entire life cycle chain, right? AI risk, ethics, and accountability, continuous. The very last one is very important. Remember how I said it's not like you roll out and one time it's done? You actually have to continue to audit because as soon as you put it out there, it's starting to degrade and you have to start monitoring and trying to figure out when that drift is going to happen, okay? So pay attention to this. If anything else, when you go home, make sure you understand the concept and more importantly, what are the implications of that? Speaking of which, that's what I'm going to cover today, some of the implications of that. Use cases. So use cases with AI, it actually bring in risk. Because if you think about it, you can't be 100% sure what the outcome is going to be like because they bring in uncertainties. So you have to manage your risk. Risk as well as AI maturity. So when you go in and pick your use case, you have to ask yourself, how mature is my company? How ready are we for AI? Do we understand it? So between the risk and maturity, those are the two key factors. And what I attempt to do in the next 5 sections there is that what are all of the high-level factors you have to think about? So in the order of high risk, starting with 1 to low risk, number 5. And then from high risk to the left to low risk to the right. So if you think about it, the first thing is compliance. So when you go in and pick a use case, you need to think about compliance. Rules and regulations. The first one is all about the law. You don't want to pick a use case that's high risk in you going in and be in non-compliance, right? Second one, after that comes in company policies. They're there for a reason. A lot of times the reasons is, you know what, you heard about reputational issues, right? When you have the system goes out there, maybe it's not that bad in terms of monetary-wise, but reputational-wise, it's a huge damage. The board is not going to like you if you're an executive, and you're responsible for that, right? And then contractual obligations. Not a lot of people think about that. Contractual obligation, you need to think about that, because when you're picking a use case, where's the data coming from? Because if you're in a company that's over 100 years old, you have tons of data, but if you don't, then you actually buy it from a third party. And some of them actually have some of those obligations, when and where and what and how and all that stuff, you can use the data. And then more importantly, there's also, like now with AI, you use open source solution. So some of them is like it's free until you commercialize it. So read the fine print, right? So there's contractual obligations. And then last but not least, do you know what? Do not wait until there's a law passed. You are all empowered to go in and design and build it, right? Ethic by design, responsible by design, secure by design, however you want to think about it. Because think of it this way, AI is out there. And in order for you to make sure that you are contributing to solving the problem and not become the problem, is that imagine if I'm going to build this or design this, how is it going to impact me, my family, my loved ones, my community? Because if you think about the implications and all the risk involved, I bet you if we all do that, we don't really need for the government to come in and tell us what the rules and policies are, the rules and regulations are. Because in reality, the rules and regulations are there to help enforce the law, and more importantly, for those who break it, we can deter them from it, right, because of all the fines. Second, business value versus risk. So, think about it. If you've never used AI before, and would you go in and pick the most complex use case that there's out there because you love a challenge? Do you think that would be a good idea? Or would you rather pick the lowest risk, but with the biggest bang for the buck, right? That goes as high as you can. And then second, data sensitivity and control. Because at the end of the day, it is about the data. Because the data impacts the outcome. And it is about control. Because if you have the data and you're scraping it from the internet, social media, how much control do you have on the quality of that data? Not a lot. So the risk is very high. And then third-party vendor. You think that you bought the data. We've actually went and bought some data, and we always discover there's missing data. They have a certain percentage of accuracy. So it's not perfect, but at least it's better than the public data. And then last but not least, internal data. You remember the time when, before AI, one of our biggest problems is like, how do we go in and solve data quality? If you think back, it's like, little do we know, those are the good old days, right? Now that we have social media and everything else. So ironically, internal data is now the lowest risk because you actually have control over it. You can actually clean it. You can actually go in and yell at somebody, say, hey, clean up your data, versus you can't go in and tell that to social media, especially TikTok. Technical complexity. Back to data again, but it's about unstructured, semi-structured, structured data, right? Or the numbers of vendor tools is like technical complexity. Unstructured data. How many here already know what unstructured data is versus semi-structured? I think everybody pretty much know, right? So I'm not going to go and give you that definition. Organizational readiness, we already talked about that, right? How, it's like, how fluent, how much do you understand AI? And then how much are you willing to accept it? Two very different things. Just because I understand it doesn't mean I want to. Because I know a lot of people out there who understand AI very well but refuse to use it for various reasons. So now that you know this, I will use an example, a real life example of how one of the first thing we do, I used to work for a very large insurance company. And we have lots of data scientists and have been doing it for at least a decade. So we were actually very mature and at the forefront of AI. And what was different is that we were trying to bring in what's now called deep learning. In other words, unstructured data. Because we were trying to bring in images for the very first time. And by doing that, we know that it's going to cause a lot of bump and bruises and changes along the way. So what we did is that we picked a use case where the use case is that how much damage is, based upon the photo, how much damage is this car? That cleared us of the compliance because nothing there is really high risk for compliance. Second one, business value. Well, actually the decision would be a high value impact. But you know what we did? We went in and said, for the first pass, we're just going to take it through pilot, meaning we're going to take it all the way through production just to see what's going to happen, but not tie the business to it. As a matter of fact, we're going to run it on production, and no business decision is going to be made from it, but we're going to run it in parallel with the current process and run it side by side so we can gather more statistics. See, so we eliminated the business value situation. Data sensitivity. It's an image. There shouldn't be a lot of data-sensitive information until that bump in the night. Apparently, a lot of our policyholders went in and sent in a photo of not just their cars, but also their credit card and their driver's license. Even though we tell them, please, please, please do not do it. They send it in anyway. So what we try to do is to try to filter it out, stop it before it even go through the system and log in somewhere, right? So we had this bright idea of why don't we use AI to identify if it's a driver's license or credit card, then just stop it, right? Don't block it altogether. Except security said, you are not allowed to use driver's license and credit cards to train your model because this is data privacy issue. But then how are we going to go in and try to train our models to filter it out if we're not allowed to actually use it, right? So that is an example of conflict, policy conflict. And that actually happens more often than not, especially between the different countries. The European versus the US, we had a lot of good discussions between that with some of the policymakers. I had a lot of good discussion with that. I can name a few. So pay attention to that. Technical complexity. So we brought in computer vision. We discover that you cannot go in and have an accurate, the model can't be trained against the photos because the image has such low resolution. So we'll have to bump it up higher. But then that caused the storage to increase, it caused traffic jam. All of a sudden we have infrastructure issues. So now we have another set of projects. The infrastructure team have to go in and work that problem out while the data scientists go in and figure out their modeling. And then last but not least, while we're trying to do this, we're trying to figure out what are all the processes and things that change. So as you can see, that use case, by doing it that way, allow us to try to test out, learn about deep learning, learn about the images, and all of that at a very low risk. Okay? So the next thing, this, if you have a camera, this is the one thing you should take a picture of or memorize the word experimental design. It is underutilized and not understood because data scientists, the key word is scientists. Every single scientist, whether you're biology, chemistry, whatever the case might be, have to go through and understand how to set up an experiment properly so that they can have the proper outcome. To the point where even if you're expert, You've heard about peer reviews, right? People cannot go in and submit here's my research, here's my outcome, without peer reviews. And one of the things that peer reviews do is that they make sure, are you following good practices? And the reasons for that is because, the questions we ask, is it valid? Guess what? The very first thing I have up there is checking to make sure that it's valid and it's reliable. That's what it brings. Second thing, transparency, explainability, audit. Oh my gosh, it's a good landmine, right, among the auditors and compliance. And then bias, fairness, and monitoring, trust. And I'm not talking about racial tensions or anything like that. I'm talking about bias in terms of, do we have the proper sampling to make sure that it is going to be accurate when it comes out? For an example, like we're trying to sell a product, but it's seasonal. But if you did the testing in the non-season, it's going to be very different from the seasonal. And then how many cycles do you need that to go through, right? So the bias and the fairness, data sampling, that's right there. Risk and compliance management, right? Confirm that all of the interventions and predefined safeties and all that is working. Because how many times have you heard about, here's a drug test, and it has to go through all these multiple stages, have to test on animals first before human beings, right? Same thing here. In a different sense, but you have to go through that. Risk and compliance management is a stage gate. So in other words, here are the risks and compliance before we can even put it on production. You need to prove that you are in compliance. That you have, and here are the anticipated risks, and here's how we're going to mitigate it if it does come up, right? We try so much, there's always the unexpected. Accountability, ownership. How many times have you seen on the internet right now, because of AI, we don't know who owns it. The boards are asking that, the executive are asking that, and it's staring us right here. Because as part of the experimental design, you have to identify who are the owners. Who are responsible for this? Because you need to gather, like for an example, if I were to go in that total loss I was talking about, well, I'm not the domain expert. I have to work with the business. Who owns that decision? Who's making that decision? What does that look like, right? And then continuous improvement. Well, we already know what continuous improvement is, because as you experiment, you're always fine-tuning it, optimizing it, making sure it looks good. And then value assurance. The other word, write it down, is, and you can look it up, is value quantification. That's another key word, because value quantification ties the financial back to your experiment. So if you look at this pretty much answers everything from governance, from responsible AI, from ROI. You cannot and should not leave the gate unless you pass through this. And the reasons why I'm thinking that a lot of the 95% failed, bless the citizen data scientists. They tried to learn, they went through it, they do very well, but this is one thing that was taught, and even the expert sometimes fail in this too, because how you interpret the data. If you want an example, remember way back when, several decades ago, there was this infamous research that came out and claimed that hormone replacement therapy actually caused breast cancer among women. And it wasn't until afterwards that they actually reviewed the data and reviewed the design. They discovered that the experiment that they were running was wrong, was bad. And that caused a whole generation to lose out. Okay, so that's the reason why. Make sure that you pay attention to this one. Oh, I guess it did work. Okay, sorry. So for transparency, I was in such a hurry this morning. I created a rough PowerPoint. I don't have the time to go in and generate the slide. So somebody suggested I use this one tool to go and generate the PowerPoint for me. So I used it. Except I discovered a whole bunch of other issues. I think I might have been faster if I did it myself. And this wasn't working when I was at home. I was like, okay, fine, I won't do it. But let's talk about, so now that you have go through the experiment design, but what about the ROI itself? What are some metrics that is unique to AI? The first one here is about tracking model drift, right? Model and data drift. Basically, the data has changed because it's either because the definition has changed, or culturally has changed, our policy has changed, the context has changed. That causes the data model drift. Model drift, one of the examples that you all know is like, how many of you have been around and played with ChatGPT when it first came out? And then a few months later, you used to be able to do the math, and then you try a few months later, wait a minute, it's not working anymore. Because there's been a model drift. They've made changes, and there's new data, and because of that data, it changes, right? Second one, now remember, it's a probability. So how do you go in and monitor that? So you have the data coming out. So how do you know that it's accurate or not? So you have to monitor it based upon statistical means, right? You work with your business based upon the domain expert. What is the tolerance, right? And if it falls out of, because there's always going to be outliers, and there's always going to be, it might go up and trends going down. But what we do is we watch for the trends. You are lucky if it's wrong or bad data that caused the entire thing to crash, because you know something's wrong. But the problem with AI is that it trends very subtly, and you don't know it. And by the time you figure it out, it's too late, because you've made a lot of business decision on it. That's the reasons why you need to figure out what is the, they call it confidence level. So how confident are you with the answer, based, within the statistical means, okay? Second one is like learning velocity. So what that means, velocity, what that means is that how fast can it learn with the new set of data? So you throw it out there, and now all of a sudden everybody's hammering at it. All of a sudden AI now has this new set of data. How fast can it quickly learn and evolve? Right? That is very important. And then evaluate, the human AI collaboration. Because if we're going to be using a tool as powerful as AI, it is going to change the way you work. Whether you embrace it or not, it will go in and change it. And then last but not least, is how do you quantify the decision lift? So in other words, how do you go in and make sure that it's not just, we went in and created 100 report out there within 10 seconds. But what happened if the 100 reports in 10 seconds is actually not usable? So it's not really efficiency, is it? It's really the lift. At the end of the day, are you gaining anything out of it? Or are you improving something out of it? What's the bottom line, right? At the end of the day, revenue minus cost is equal to profit. We're all chasing after the profit. So an example of this is that how many of you are familiar with the customer lifetime value? Okay. Some of you? So customer lifetime value is actually very difficult back in the traditional days because it follows the lifetime of your customer, because he or she would change over time. Going back to an insurance industry example, when I first graduated from college, I needed different types of insurance as a single woman. But then when I get married, I would now need insurance on the house. And then when I have kids, now I need insurance on kids. And then once I have so my lifetime value changed. So we have to go in, so you notice in the beginning, the data has changed, right? Because every single instances, there's something new, something going on in my life. I just married, I just got an apartment, whatever the case be, that has changed. Measuring the confidence, and because of this new data and the new time in my life, what is the probability of, whoa, you know what, she have a baby, maybe she would want to have a policy on this, or buy baby and gift showers, right? So that is right there. Or maybe she's just buying it for her friend and neighbor. Second one, how fast can it learn from the brand new data, customer lifetime value? Because I just gave you some big high milestone, but throughout the whole entire, I just got it, you know what, I'm a bad driver, and I keep on getting into a car accident, so I need to adjust. Because with a human collaboration. We all talk about like great customer service. Well, insurance, guess what? If you have a low customer value, maybe you would be a little bit slower to pick up the phone and try to retain them, right? And then last but not least, and because of that, trying to identify a high customer value versus a low customer value, meaning how much revenue, how much upsell, cross-sell, all of that, you can now quantify that. Okay. All right. So next, scaling. So now we talked about using a business case. We talk about experimenting it. We talk about doing the pilot. Now we're ready for prime time. But it doesn't stop there, because remember what I said about how it always continues, you need to continue to monitor it, you need to continue to change. So you need a whole new set of metrics. And that parallel I was talking about, how we roll it out, we're not going to make a decision, that was actually, turns out to be very useful. Because one of the things we wanted to go and figure out is that the first one, how adaptable, well, first one is more about like, because it constantly changes all the time, we're always experimenting. I love Agile for that. I'm actually a waterfall gal myself, and I have done well in waterfall because a lot of people say I'm very organized, and I always talk to my customers to understand them, so I don't really need Agile, but this is where Agile shines. So instead of gathering like what are the requirements and all of that, it's actually gathering all the data and hypothesis. So it's slightly changed, there is a slight difference. But this is where, because you always, because remember what Agile is about, right? Trying to understand, it's like, we could have proved this feature, see if it works or not. If it doesn't work, we pivot, go into the next one, right? It's like a whole bunch of experiment that goes on and on. Budget for continuous value. So this is something that a lot of leadership didn't think about. Because remember, roll it out and it's working, hallelujah, we're done. And even if they know that they have to go in and implement it, they forgot that it's almost like continuous development all the time. Somebody needs to go and monitor it. Somebody still needs to go in and do the human oversight and check it. Governance is always working, constantly. So an example of this, because remember what I said earlier about that image, by the way? One quarter, we rolled out 50 rollout in one quarter, because we were rolling it out and it was like, oh, we can tune it, and we kept on fine-tuning and fine-tuning it and all of that. So that is a big deal. Second, data readiness is not only about garbage in and garbage out. That's just the beginning. Because where the data coming from, where you're allowing to use it, how the data has changed. It could be completely viable data. It's completely right, but we did not anticipate, the unexpected reactions or outcome of it, right? So we need to go in and take a look and make sure of that. And because I have some cybersecurity friends in here, so I'm going to pivot. Secure by design, safety by design, this is also a key thing too. Because if you think about it, there's data poisoning, right? And not only that, but in the past, remember how I said that traditionally it's like the endpoint. Once you come in, except for maybe internal attacks, you're pretty much safe, and then you come out, like what goes out in the end, so you just do the endpoint. But here, you have to look at the entire supply chain from end to end, because they figured out how to get in there. Human adoption scale to slower technology. Technology actually moved faster because, it's not always the technology, it's the people. Trying to change along with it, trying to adapt, trying to anticipate. And then, of course, governance. So let me give you an example. So let's go back to here. And again, in deference for my security friends, voice. Because now, thanks to Gen AI, all they need is just a picture of you, that everybody posts LinkedIn, capture a picture of you. They only need 3 seconds of your voice samples. So somebody called you, hello, they don't need you to say whatever, they just need 3-second voice sample, and then all of a sudden that they can now generate a lifelike image of you with your voice. And I was told by this one company that they can 100% of the time get the customer rep to change the password. 100% of the time. And the reasons for that, and going back to human adoption, so they were asking, why do they do that? Shouldn't they know? And all that. It's like, well, guess what? Customer rep, what are they trained to do? Please your customer, right? Satisfy your customer, make them happy. So when you have somebody coming in, even though they were trained not to give out the password and everything, but for all intended purposes, it looks happy, so they're trying to make the customer happy, right? So that is a policy change. And with that policy change, you have to go in and imagine that the word I said right here is that it actually helps scales it. Because if you go in and identify the poisoning, you take care of it, and you change your policy, you do the training, we're off to the races, right? And with that, so especially if you go back to the board, you can now go in and explain to them, guess what? We discovered this, but we fixed it. That's the good news. Okay, when it comes to leadership, redefining the work and accountability. So I've talked about like how does it impact the workforce. You've heard about people who really love AI so much that even though the company said you're not allowed to use AI, they're going to sneak in and use it anyway, right? And then you have a whole bunch of shadow AI. But then there's the other folks who, in my opinion, legitimately say, I don't want to be dependent upon AI. Because I remember when I have to, each time I use AI, I have to ask myself, what risk am I getting myself into, and what am I willing to give up? If I use AI, for an example, I start using Microsoft Word document everything. I used to be a wonderful, great speller. I cannot spell anything anymore. And I need a calculator to actually do math really fast. But I understand, but the reason why I was willing to give that up is because I understand the fundamental. So if I have to go back, I can figure it out. And that's the same thing with AI. If you were to use AI, you have to ask yourself, what are you willing to give up? If I am an engineer and I code and everything, and I give myself, and I rely on AI 100%, instead of using AI to help, you know what? This is a boring task. I can do this in my sleep, and I will never forget it. I'll just let it do the menial task. I'll do the more complicated one, right? That is not giving it up. So we can talk more about dependency. For those who are still afraid of it, come and talk to me. For those who are not afraid of it, come and talk to me. So you have to view AI as this way. AI is a very smart assistant, new hire. Here is a new hire who is very smart, can learn very fast, but lacks experience, lacks information about the company, and definitely don't know what's right from wrong, how you should do things in the company, and more importantly, don't know how you do your work. So your job, think of AI as a brand new hire, the buddy system, right? You can now go in and train it to do things, to get it to be productive. More importantly, if you go in and you got it right, and they come back and got it right, you can pat it in the back. But if it does something wrong, you can say, hey, you need to tweak this. And the nice thing about AI is that it doesn't go in, it has a very thick skin, it doesn't argue with you. Say, okay, let me go in and change it, right? So my point is, like, use AI like a trusted coworker, but don't be 100% dependent upon it unless you're willing to give up that skill, because AI is going to take over that particular job of yours that you are now dependent upon them. And then as leaders, your job as leader is to go in and make sure you understand and watch your teams and your co-teams, right? How well are they working together? Are there any behavioral changes? Do I need to make any changes to the policy? Those are, as a leader, that is important to you. Because if you need to go in and make policy changes, based upon the new patterns. Because think about it, we all said that AI is here to stay, and it is changing the way we work. And if it changes the way we work, then there's going to be a policy change. Because it goes back into the workforce planning, it becomes dynamic. It's not like back in the day where we go in and create a job profile or career path or this is the workflow, and then we forget about it because it hardly ever changed. Because things change so fast that you honestly have to keep on your feet. So all these companies right now who are laying off everybody, including the management because we don't think we need it, I wouldn't be surprised if later on they're like, oh, wait a minute, I still need somebody to identify these policy issues. Because I know AI is not going to, at least not yet, be able to observe the behavioral changes, understand how that's going to change the policy. Because if you expect your workforce to be able to adapt, training them on the new training them on AI, you show them how to use and everything, that's great. But if they don't, but if the job profile and the career path doesn't match it, then they're not going to be able to be rewarded for it because there's going to be a mismatch. If their performance, their review, their salary, their livelihood doesn't match what they are currently doing now with AI. So you really do need to do a policy change. Okay. So with that, I think I am done. The one thing that I wanted to put up here is that because I want to go and reiterate, OpenAI have just recently put out published a couple postings admitting that they were wrong and they have to backtrack. And because of that, if you think about it, and you read the bottom, however, in this update, we focused too much on short-term feedback and did not fully account for how users' interactions with ChatGPT evolve over time. As a result, GPT-4o skewed toward responses that were overly supportive but disingenuous. So if OpenTV can fall into that same trap, my point is understand it, mitigate the risk, but as leaders, you need to allow your workforce to experiment and to fail, because there will be a lot of failed experiment before it's successful. Thank you. Q&A.
The RACI matrix.
Yes.
So I can see, I'm trying to figure out where I would assign something to AI.
Okay.
In a process flow, it's very easy for me to imagine AI having its own swim lane. I'm much more skeptical that I'm going to give AI a row in a RACI, and I'm even more skeptical that I'm going to assign AI in a project plan. Agree, disagree, or do you even like the topic, the notion of where does AI receive formal assignments?
Well, first of all, nobody ever asked me that before, so thank you for that question. If I have to think about it off the top of my head, I would have to imagine going back to that risk I was telling you about. Like if you were to assign AI at this stage, and you don't know what's going to happen because you've never done that before, then I would start out with something, assign AI a task that is less risky, and then see how well it does before you go and change something else. Because what I didn't show here is that, again, something else that you guys can take a look at, OpenTV did a research, and it's called, off the top of my head, GDP eval, E-V-A-L. What they did is a research against 44 different white-collar tasks who have, against 15 years of experience. And it found out that it's actually performing pretty well. So the point is, it's getting better, and it can do those tasks. The key thing, however, is that you need to go in and figure out, like, if we're going to assign a task, but what does the oversight look like, right? How good, it's like we talk about confidence level. If I assign you this task, again, it's probability. right? There's going to be like ups and downs and things like that. So through statistical means, it's like how far can I trust this and how long can I, let the cycle go through before I actually can trust it 100%, right? Any other questions? Yes, Greg.
I appreciate the comments that you made towards the end, that we can use it as an assistant and use it to verify things, and it won't pop back. But what are we going to do with the current generation that is growing up with the ability to use AI at an early age, where they don't have the formal educational background to know different steps and to know to check the work? That's what really scares me.
It's funny you mentioned that because I put the alarm out for that. And I put the alarm out because remember the keynote speaker that we just had at the CISO event? I talked to him afterward. I told him of my theory, and he said, "You're dead on." As a matter of fact, he wants to talk to me some more about it because of it. Because here are the evidence that I'm seeing. We are already, if you think about it, the kids are already tied to social media platform, TikToks and all of that stuff, right? So you know how addictive it is. And you cannot wean them away from it right now. It's socially ingrained into them. So evidence number one. Second, AI has gotten good enough now, the intelligence is there. Now they're going after personalization. Mark Zuckerberg, thanks to him, gave us social media platform, is now going after friendship and therapists. Because he did the research and he said that there's only, most of us only have maybe 1 or 2 friends that we can rely on. So therefore, he's going to create a friend for us, an AI friend for us. So even if you ignored him, who's going to create an AI friend, who's therefore going to know everything about you, all the sensitive information and everything, then you have OpenAI, Amazon, all those guys are trying to make your life easier by reading your calendar, by learning everything that there is to know about you, because we can help you. And you're thinking, oh, that's great, I'm going to give them all my personal information so they can help me. So here's what's going to happen. In 2030, when 6G comes out, and 6G, if you think about it, you take an entire Netflix library, you can download in 1 second. That's how fast it is. So not only can communication, everything goes really fast, but you can't even stop it if you wanted to, right? Because there's pros and cons. And then the other thing is quantum's going to come out. So between all of that, can you imagine your kids, when they're growing up, they might actually no longer go to their moms, their dads, their teacher for advice anymore. They're going to be talking to their AI friend. So as a society, to your point, we now need to go in and actually, believe it or not, go back to the fundamental. Because when I was growing up, I actually was born in Vietnam. When I was growing up, my parents taught me how to read and write in Vietnamese by reading books and parables, lessons learned, right? So every single sentence I read, I have to write down. And then they ask me, so not only they're checking my grammars and everything, but they also check, what is the lessons you're learning from this? And putting the human back into it, forcing us to go out to the forest to walk together again. So I know that that's a soft answer. So that, as a society, we need to go back to our roots. But as a technologist, we need to do something to mitigate that. I have some ideas. And one of the ideas that I have, because if you think about agentic AI, it automatically go out and connect to each other and does things and run amok. So one of the things I was thinking of, yeah, I know, I'm sorry, the word amok. One of the things I was actually thinking of is that AI should not be allowed to self-initiate unless initiated by a human. Because we cannot prevent the bad actors, but at least we can hopefully try to prevent AI from self-initiating, oh, do you know what? Humans are a scourge on this earth. We should eradicate them, right? You need to self-initiate. So that's some of the things. I've thought of others too. That's the reason why I love to go back to that professor. It's like, here's some ideas, what can we do? And one of that is policy changes too as well. Yes?
I'm really a layman in the field. Follow up that question. I have a question. Should we start now teaching, and I know we're talking about doing AI, doing AI in the school to teach the younger people about AI, and actually give them information on it so to take the magic out of it.
Yes.
To demystify
Yes.
exactly what it is, and actually get them to learn it and understand how it works.
Yes.
Even try to build it.
Yes. I'm so happy you brought that up because you're talking about demystifying AI with the younger folks in the education. Because I've actually worked with not only with some of the teachers in the, in the elementary schools and high schools, but I've actually worked a lot with the higher education. And believe it or not, we still have professors to this day say you're not allowed to use AI. And I personally think that's a disservice because if you look at the job market, they already said that a lot of the entry job is hard to get employed right now because it's being replaced by AI. So you're not really doing them any service. But what I'm trying to say is that, yes, teach them how to use AI because my daughter tells me that her teacher wouldn't let her use AI. She used it anyway. So think of it this way. Would you rather teach your kid how to use the gun properly, or would you rather have the kid go out and figure it out by themselves? So with that, teach them when you're using AI, ask them the question, what is it? Do you understand the concept before you use AI? And by using AI, does that reinforce the concept so you can learn and therefore you can do more advanced things, right? So in other words, teach them how to use AI responsibly. Thank you for that question. Any other? All right. Yes?
It's not really a question, it's more of a comment. But I like what you mentioned about the AI friendly future that Mexico is building. There's actually a AI friend that was released earlier this year that got a lot of big in the streets in New York City. So how do you think people can accept a product that they already reject? What do you think would be the difference?
Do you know, I hate to say it, but at the end of the day, it's all about commercialism, right? I mean, it's like the reasons why people buy because they see value in it. And and therefore, people are going to buy because I have a neighbor who tells me that he's actually using AI to get advice on how to raise his kids, and he finds it very helpful, right? So I talk about, like, here's the bad thing, but there are some good things about it. The key thing is that, are you going to now let AI dictate how you're going to raise your kids? So the question is, like, all those people there, I'm not going to prevent them from going out and enjoy an application, an AI app that actually brings joy and value to their life. The question is, are they using it and do they understand what they're giving up, right? And that is, therefore, we need to really educate them in AI literacy. Yes. Anybody else? Okay.
What's the difference between communicating with a very advanced AI and communicating with a human being? What would you not when we talk to each other, for example? Very soon, maybe in 5-10 years, AI will be pretty much better. You need to be afraid.
Okay. So for me, and this is, thank you for asking the question. His question is like, you have very advanced AI. So what's the difference between communicating with a human or communicating with an AI, right? Think of it this way. AI is based upon pattern recognitions. And people love AI in the sense that it's giving what's perceived to be objective answers. But in reality, it's curating a lot of different answers from everybody, and hopefully with the guardrail, it gives you the right answer that's responsible. And if you're fine with that, do you know what? That's fine. But for me personally, the reasons why I don't like to use AI is because of the unintended consequences. If you look at I love neuroscience newsletter. I'm addicted to it. And one of the things is that I discovered, because in the past, what I'm worried about is dementia. And what I discovered is that simple thing as eye-hand coordination actually help with neuroplasticity, our ability to learn new things. So if you are talking to AI in advance, then make sure that you're aware that you're talking to AI and artificial and what you can learn from it. But the human being is still a mystery. Because if you think about it, even the psychology, behavior science experts, they cannot predict. They don't even know how our brain thinks. They only know that if we do this, then this is what's going to happen, like the reactions, everything, but they don't know like actually how it works, including psychology, because there's so many like different permutations and contexts and everything. So to me, that is the biggest challenge, right? Because AI, I'm sitting there talking, I'm typing on the computer. I am actually, they found the research, like if you go outside in the sun, that actually help you, because I know the sun actually help me sleep better. You know, I don't need to have, so I guess what I guess what I'm trying to say is this: do not underestimate the beneficial health reasons, both psychologically, emotionally, and future, resistance against all these diseases and everything from human interactions, okay? Because you already saw the research out there, babies who do not have that human interactions actually grew up with something missing, right? Well, if you're gonna grow up with AI and talking to only AI, then I think you get the picture. All right, thank you.
And I realize that we are running late or longer, so I will try to go as fun as I can. I think what is going to be very interesting as part of my talk is that you're going to see a lot of synergy with what was just presented. The main difference is that I've put together a practical framework to address some of the issues that were mentioned. Why is this not working? Sorry. Yeah. So the starting point is kind of looking at the the research, and there have been over the past year or so some very good research that has spoken about why people are going to fail when they are adopting generative AI. This was last year in July, saying that 30% of all of the generative AI projects will be abandoned by the end of the year. Later on, they came and say that the number of projects, and this was in March of this year, that the number of AI projects failing had increased year to year. And the previous speaker mentioned this, was the 95% of projects that didn't provide the return on investment. What they don't really say is that some of them were successful, but really that the minimal value that they were giving to the customers was not there. Well, we alluded earlier to some of the issues and why, but I think the main one is really the undefined business problem. A lot of companies have the fear of missing out on AI and have pushed themselves to apply AI regardless of what they apply it for. So they sing technology and they try to retrofit it to whatever problem is in their company. Poor data quality, we mentioned frog in, frog out, or rubbish in, rubbish out. A lot of companies spent the past few years working on data warehouse. That was a big thing in 2018. They were investing a lot of money, but the problem is that they didn't have a problem that they were trying to solve. So they did all of this infrastructure, all of this organization of the data, but in the end, because they didn't have that that project in mind or the use case in mind, that data is completely useless. And you have to restart from scratch in a lot of cases. Limited AI literacy. I think like this one is a big one. A lot of people are using AI today to mean generative AI, but they don't understand the limitations of it. Like I remember a few months ago, I was developing an application that was going to write blogs for me. And I used some of the models, and the idea was to provide as a parameters a number of words that I wanted the blog to be in length. Well, I wrote my prompt. I passed my prompt to the LLM to check that it was actually a good prompt, because I like to rate and get feedback from my LLM on the prompt that I write. And I got to a point where I get 10 out of 10 all the time, and I couldn't do anything else. And the problem was that it was never recognizing accurately the number of words. Well, I did some digging, and actually Gemini at the time didn't have any notion of words. It didn't have any notion of counting words because it had never been trained. It was never like a task that it had been trained to do. So it was always giving me like the same length because it didn't have that understanding. And that's one of the limitations. I'm sure everyone has heard of hallucination. Some use the term confabulation. I just say it's a feature. Because at the end of the day, these LLMs or large language models have been designed to please you, to return an answer. They don't care. They don't have anything to prove to check factuality of the statements. They just will be trained in the way that they are. And they will do what they are trained to. We kind of covered that in the previous presentation, but the pilot to production chasm is generally a big problem because when we do a pilot, we tend to look at a problem in a very narrow lens. We look at a very specific data, we look at very specific problem space, and when we try to bring to production, you are encountering a lot of issues that you didn't plan before. I think the example of the insurer is a very good one because they didn't realize that people were going to provide their ID card. I used to work for a publisher and we did a chatbot for software support, and it was a tax software. What did we find? That people were passing on the social security number. So we had to do something very similar. We had to anonymize, go and look, identify what a social security number looked like, and make sure that when we were capturing the logs and the information, that all of that was cleaned up. So how can we address some of this problem in a way that will ensure successful delivery of products? Well, the first one is leveraging the jobs to be done framework. The jobs to be done for these that are in product is really there to try to learn what is the problem and what is the people are doing every day. So it goes, when I do something, I want to achieve something, and I have an expected outcome. So let's imagine I'm a newspaper or a journalist. When I write a story, I want to aggregate content and provide information to my readers so that they are engaged, so that they are happy with what they are reading, or that they have the information that they're looking for. So that's a very simple way of thinking about that framework. And once you really understand what your customer or your client or the user is doing, you can really identify what the pain points were. I was working on a project recently, and the idea was, this was another publishing company, they were aggregating data from a lot of different places. And what they wanted to identify what was relevant to their customers. And we started looking at the whole end-to-end pipeline. And then what we really found is that one of the steps in the pipeline was really the one that was their pain point. But we only could get there by understanding the full process end-to-end of what they were doing, and then kind of narrowing down to what was going to provide them with the most business value or the most return on investment. I like you always want like to start with a customer, but not all customers are equal. Some customers are innovators. Some people are laggards. What is the difference between the one and the other? Well, one is more willing to try new things. The other one is stuck in their ways. When you are engaging with your customer in a practical way, you always want like to look to these innovators and early adopters, the people that are going to be willing to give you feedback very quickly. People that are going like to be willing to try new solution and new ways of doing things that they may have done all their life. There are a lot of different tools that can also help with understanding what they are saying. I like the empathy map because it helps you with separating what has been said from what they actually feel. I remember early in my career when I was still in academia, we used to do interviews with doctors. And one of the things that we were working on was on defining the rules to identify asthma in children. So we sat down with a doctor and we started like looking at the problem and started telling us, oh, I look at this factor or feature if we speak about machine learning, I look at that one. But then when we actually look at them and the way that they were processing the information in the live, they were doing a totally different process. They were not capturing all of that piece of information. Their logic was completely different. So if you just listen to what they're saying, they may mislead you because you have not seen what they were actually doing and you were not capturing what they were actually feeling. So this is a way like to help you not going down the rabbit hole of developing a solution for a problem that may have been the wrong problem because you misinterpreted the feedback or the input from the actual customer or from the client. So now we have a problem. We know what we're trying like to solve. We're going like through the second step, which is really the design. What I would say is whenever you do a design or a new solution, always start by prototyping. Provide something that someone can look at and provide feedback on the look and feel. Make it as actionable as you can. Even if it's just a link, like in Figma or some other tool that you're using, having that kind of actionable will make sure that you understand the process and whether it matches what people are doing. Most importantly, check your assumption. As a human, we tend like to take information, we tend to map things to our own experience. The problem is that our experience may not be the same as the customer that we're working for. You may have had like similar problem, like when I was doing my PhD, I was doing research. I was spending my time like looking at academic papers and that type of things. Well, it gives me some idea of what a doctor may be doing when it reviews medical research. But I may make the wrong assumption because the way that I'm looking at the information to find what I need is maybe not the way that they are filtering the information. What is important to me as a computer scientist may not be relevant to a doctor, and inversely. So it's always important to verify and make sure that if you have something that is unsure, ask a question, ask why. There is a very good talk, TED Talk, The Power of Why. I would totally recommend to look at it. I can't remember the author, but it's quite famous. But it's really to solve this problem of the assumption and looking at a problem. And again, you go down the path of creating a solution, but you realize that very early on you made the wrong assumption in terms of the problem or in terms of the solution that you would need to apply. Now the previous presenter went much higher level, and I'm not going to go through everything, but I think it's important when we speak about AI literacy as well, to really understand that when we speak about AI, there are multiple forms of AI. Was mentioned deterministic. I like to make like the separation between symbolic AI. This was the first form of AI in the 70s, the 50s. It's rule-based, decision tree you may have heard, and it was very deterministic. It's if then else, and then you get a solution. The problem with that is if you don't know what the problem you're looking at, or you get new data, well, the system was failing because it was not adaptable. Now, on the other end, it was very explainable because you knew that if the rule was triggered, well, that was the reason why it was. Then came machine learning, and machine learning was really there to solve that problem of the predictability or the adaptability. And now we were able to look at things that may not have been seen before. So you could create patterns and recognize from the patterns things in the data, in the input data, that meant that it was similar to other data. Now, we still have some level of explainability at this point, but it's harder. Now you get to the deep learning, which is really the basis of generative AI or neural networks. And there you get to the problem where it becomes totally a black box. The reason is that it's doing a lot of iteration. It looks at the problem, it looks at the data, it goes to the next set of neurons, and it will rematch the data. If you try to train a neural learning or a deep learning model, you will see one day you use the same data, same parameters, same feature. Day one you have one result, next day you will have slightly different. Your precision and recall is never going to be the same. What was working well one day is not working well the next day, and inversely, what was not working well is working well. Now, one thing that I will say is that what we see as being successful in practice is adopting what we call neurosymbolic AI, which is a combination of all of these different types of AIs. As I mentioned, machine learning is great for adaptability. A problem with machine learning is that it's statistical. If what we're dealing, and especially when you're dealing with text, is exceptions. If you train or you give to your model training data that includes exceptions, then it's going to learn patterns that are unwanted or not really matching what is existing. Now, you train your model with what is the actual expected behavior, and you use a rule-based system or symbolic AI system to deal with the exception, well, you can get close to 99%, maybe 100%. If you just use the machine learning and you put these exceptions, you are very quickly going to see degradation in your model. So we spoke about experimentation in the previous talk. One of the things that we did is we took the business canvas and we adapted it for experimentation. So you see there's different aspects. We have the job to be done, to link it back to what we want our customer to do, or what is a problem that we're trying to solve. The type of experiment that we want to do to validate what we're going to do. The part that is very important as part of this is really the data. It is making sure that you're documenting all of the data that is available, the location, where it comes from, what department, what provenance, lineage, and all of that kind of things. But then you have your hypothesis and fail conditions. You don't want to do as the previous presenter said, data scientists are scientists. They would be happy to do the same training, the model over and over and over again for life, even if it's not going to work. Because as researchers, we try to find solutions to problems. And sometimes the problem becomes our life. And that's the only thing that we can think of. Well, in business, you can't afford that. You are going to have someone else that is going to beat you to it. Someone is going to do something faster. Someone is going to do something differently and going to do it better. So you always want the fail conditions, and the time box. The fail condition enable you to determine, even before the time of the time box, whether or not it's worth continuing, and the time box like gives you, this is a point at which if I don't get something new, either I have a good enough model, which could be, or the model is totally wrong, the data was wrong, and I need to think about the problem in a different way. We touched on this, and unfortunately, I know where that is. I like to think about like responsible AI and the principles. And it's important to think about it as part of the design phase. So we mentioned security first, safety first. When it comes to AI, there is other parameters like fairness, treat all individuals in the same way, make sure that you have representation across all of the demographics. So if you train a model to determine diseases across a population and you have different ethnicity as part of your solution, make sure that your data set is balanced. Otherwise, you're going like to have interpretation that are not going like to be good. Transparency and explainability. Always make sure that you have clear explanation, that you document what your model is doing, what data you're using, and all of that kind of things. Accountability, ensuring that the decision and the outcomes are tracked, evaluated, and addressed. Privacy and security, we kind of mentioned, reliability and safety, and the big one. Everyone has heard of human in the loop. I'm sure. I don't like the human in the loop. The human in the loop says that anyone can do the job. That's not true. Experts in the loop. You are trying like to replace or use the thinking that an expert has and translate that into a model that is repeatable and applicable. So how can we solve some of these problems? Well, first of all, when you're dealing with fairness, you want to not only have a diverse team in terms of roles. So if you see here, we have DevOps, UX researchers, data engineer, data scientists, but you also want like the demographics to be different or diverse, and especially in the US. In other countries, it may not be, as demanded, but in the US, you really need to have that diversity because it gives you a different perspective. It enables you to think about the problem in a different way and identify potential bias that a male, white, in his 40s would not think about because, well, I don't experience the same thing as people from other ethnicity, women. I'm, a white male. So you want to be challenged, and you want to be challenged by having people in your team that can challenge you and can think about it. And I put back the expert in the loop. The subject matter expert is core to you being able to be successful. Well, when it comes to transparency, and one of the solutions that you have is using a model card. This was introduced, like this one, for example, by Google back in 2018. Hugging Face, if you're familiar with that platform, for every model, you can define your own model card. This is really the starting point, is where you're saying, what do I intend to do? What is the data that I used? What did I do to that data in terms of cleansing it and all of that kind of thing, so that anyone that wants to have any understanding of what is happening can do that. Now, if we think about generative AI, the last time we had a model card for some of the main models was with GPT 2.5, where OpenAI actually provided very clear information about where the data come from, how they were doing it, and so forth. That has not happened in a long time for GPT, and if you look at models like Llama, even though it's open source in terms of the inference, we know nothing about the data, about the process that they're behind. Same with Gemma from Google, and so forth. There are three models that I'm aware of for which we know everything about. One is Olmo from the Allen Institute. And then 2 are more recent and in Europe. One is Apertus by the Swiss government, and the other one is OpenELDR, which is another European project. And there they have provided all of the information about what the data was, what the weight were for each of the features, and so forth. Yeah, the other one is really like making sure that for the accountability that you track and you log and everything that is going on, why a decision was taken, what were the steps, and that type of things. So we have a problem, we've designed a solution, time to implement it. Well, the first thing that I would recommend is really look at what is called the minimum viable product. And why is it called minimal viable product? It's minimal because it focuses on the essential features that is needed for your customer to be able to test the application. It's viable because you could actually get money from it. You could actually sell it. There is all the capabilities that are needed for it to be a product. And product because it's a working solution. So now you have something that you can actually put in the hand of someone that they can play with, that can provide you feedback. I'm not covering this here, but when it comes to the go-to-market strategy, you have different ways that you can go about it. You can give it for free for your innovators and early adopters so that they give you feedback. You can make it a paid model, or you can have the alpha, the beta, as Ron is doing, and that type of things. One of the things that always help with defining what should go into an MVP is this impact effort matrix. So you always want to look at it from the perspective, what is the effort that I'm going to do to implement a feature and the impact that it's going to give to my customer. If you are up here, and just forget about it. It's not MVP, and it's probably never going to be implemented in your product. Unless the technology changes and gets better, but otherwise, just forget about it. Where you want to be is really here, where you have a low effort but high impact, or here, but you know that it's going to be a major project. Now, that major project could be your main differentiator to your competitors. So you always have to balance it. You have to make sure that you understand the market in which you operate to be able to determine whether or not you are spending the money wisely. And here, if your developers are bored and they have nothing to do during the holidays, maybe you want to give them some of that, or if something is really needed, but otherwise, you kind of forget that as well in practice. What is important is that you need to evaluate these things continuously. So it's not because you are in the implementation phase that you should not have an alpha on the first months or use a sprint method where you ship something, someone starts using it, that gives you feedback, but you also want to monitor. The previous presenter, sorry, I don't want to butcher your name, spoke a lot about the evaluation and the agile process. And she spoke about the model testing and all of that kind of things. But you also want to evaluate and track the user behavior. How are they interacting with my application? Are they happy with it? Are they doing what we are expecting them? And that will help you to refine the model. So we have an MVP. Well, we have a problem. We have designed the solution. We have an MVP. Now we go for the other part, which is the evaluate. Why do I say it's the other part? It's because at the end of the day, you have a North Star. And your North Star, you can use OKRs, to different metrics to be able to track that you're going in the right direction. Is the feedback that you're getting from your customer going with what your expectations were? or do you get something different? You have KPIs as well. You have key performance indicators. Here, like I was looking at an idea of a news website that gives information, reduce stress, make sure that the information is trustworthy. So we have a trustworthy score, and we want like to track over time, how is that performing? We have a stress index that you want to monitor as well, like, because that was core to the metrics that you said that would be given back return. And then you have your total consumption, time of engagement, and potentially the channel. Because that helps you as well to determine, well, do I need like to spend more? Here we have 35% of our users are using YouTube. Well, probably we should create more content that goes to YouTube, as opposed like to go like to TikTok or that company's website, because they are maybe not using that as much, or that feature, or that's not the way that your actual demographic is using your application. You may have thought that they were going like to use all of these channels in the same way, but in practice, you're seeing from the data that they're only using one more than the others. Which leads to persevere or pivot. Like, I'm European, from Belgium. We speak about our failure as much as our success. I've been here in the US for 10 years now, and all I hear is about success. It's very rare that someone really speaks about their failure. The problem is that what that leads sometimes to is people persevering beyond the point at which they should, because they know that they're going to fail. They have all the data that shows them that they are going to fail or that they fail, but they continue going on. So they put more money at the problem, and then you get to a point where, well, the company has to be disbanded or other things because you didn't really look at the data in the right way. Like in the example with YouTube, the pivot is maybe why I abandoned TikTok, I abandoned the website and more natural language content, and I focus on generating videos. That's a pivot. That's how you learn from the data on how you are going like to do. If anything from my talk you remember is when you develop a product, nobody is looking for AI. I've never heard a customer telling me, I want AI. They've always told me, I have a problem. Help me solve it. How you do it, it's up to you. Use the latest technology, use the old technology, make it efficient, but make it that you are solving the problem that I have. Don't think technology first. If you're interested in the slides, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to share them with you. And if you have any questions, if you could ask me the same question that was asked to the previous presenter, I have different opinions.
See, we should have a three-way conversation then. I should have said that. It's like
with the AI in the middle.
in the middle or around. Because I find some of the best conversations actually with everybody's talking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd love to hear what you think is the latest risk that AI can pose.
There is many. I think I will start with the education aspect. When we were in school, I remember even in Belgium, and from speaking to my wife that was bred here, it was very much the same. We were taught in an industrial manner. What I mean by that is that we were expected to go to the factories, listen, and do the job that we were told without any type of critical thinking, any type of telling our boss that they were wrong. That's, do you remember telling your teacher ever that they were wrong? And them kind of looking at you and saying, oh, you're right, I'm wrong. No. They were like, oh, you can go and see the principal. At least that's what I remember. But what we need now, it's a complete shift from that perspective where critical thinking is important. You need to teach the kids very early that they need to challenge the information that they're receiving. I think that that's a first shift from that perspective. And I can see it with my kids. I have 3 kids. We have Google Assistant in every room. They interact with these more than with me sometimes. And we are in Naperville, so they have iPad in kindergarten and 1st grade, Chromebooks in 2nd to 5th grade, and then after that, I don't know because I'm not there yet. But they are exposed. They have access to the technology, like with Chromebooks. Now Gemini is embedded in every application, pretty much. So they have access to it. So we need to make sure that they learn what the limitations are. I think someone mentioned Friends. Character.ai, was in the news last summer, if I remember correctly, for a kid that committed suicide in California. He had used Character.ai and one of their bot as a way to interact and find companionship. More recently, this was with OpenAI. A kid also committed suicide because he was sharing information, and it seemed that the bot, when they looked at the log, was pushing him to commit suicide. He said, "Should I?" And the bot said, "Yeah, you should." Again, the bot is there to please in a way, not in the right way. If you look at Grok, they have created personas for how you are interacting with some of their bots. So you have one that is a conspiracy theorist. So anytime that you interact with, it's going to create conspiracy. The other one is a comedian with very sarcastic humor. I think that's where it's going to be harder. I think it's different in Europe, where there are rules that are more stringent and in place, where you need to say that you are a bot if you are a bot. In the US, we don't have that. I think the risk right now is, the US is very much a country where money speaks first. And there is an arm race towards AGI. AGI is not what people want, or at least in the enterprise. If I speak to one of my customers, they never want AGI. They have narrow problems. They want narrow AI, not AGI. But the problem, as we are seeing, is that billions and billions of dollars have been poured in these AGI, like $500 billion to Oracle for building data centers, that they get the money back, through OpenAI. $300 billion for another data center. For these that are old enough, what I predict is that we're going to have another dot-com bubble in a few years, because a lot of the solutions are wrapper-based. So essentially, someone decided to create a prompt on top of an LLM. They put a nice, I would say, makeup on a pig, with a nice application on top of the LLM, and they sold it. Well, the problem is that now OpenAI sees that, and every time they release a new model, they try to solve a problem that another company has solved. They just recently released Agentic, their framework, which Crew.ai was doing, Noon was doing, and many others. So it's kind of taking a lot of what exists, and they're trying to become a monopoly. Soon the bubble is going to burst. That's an open question right now. Did I answer your question, or? Sorry, you're eating. Yeah.
So I'm enjoying what I'm seeing from you and Bich-Thuy, maybe from Ron, but especially the two of you. There's information that's very applicable pre-AI. For example, project failure rates. Mm-hmm. I get it. Should anyone be surprised? So it's more of a reaction and a statement. So I don't have a question, but I welcome your reaction.
No, we should not be surprised, because the base problem of not knowing the problem that we are solving has been there even with normal project. And I think waterfall was mentioned earlier. Waterfall was one of the reasons a lot of projects were failing, because things were changing or requirements were changing, But the waterfall was saying, I have on day one all of my requirements, and I can't deviate from that. And I'm going, and then it's 2 years down the line, you deliver the product, and someone beat you to it because they were using technology or something else to solve the problem faster. So it is not new. The characteristic and the problems that relate and how to solve it is slightly different. The waterfall problem, we introduce Agile as a way to solve it. Agile by itself is not going to solve the issues that relates to failure of AI project. Agile is not going to solve the data problem. It's not going to solve the AI literacy problem. So you have new problems that are coming that are very specific to the adoption of AI that was not there before. But to your point, there are certain things that are a continuation of the same problem, and despite the tools that are available, people tend to forget to use them.
So Robert, kind of like what you said, it's like one of the things I with the workforce, what I should have mentioned is that you absolutely have to change your mindset, which is the hardest thing to do. So what's going on is that intellectually, like Quentin said, we know it's going to fail. Everybody knows it's going to fail. You actually witness and seen it fail multiple times as a leader. But the issue is that you're going through generation of doctrine where you cannot fail. You have to have like Six Sigma. You have to be perfect. You have to be correct, right? So failure is not an option. That has gone and ingrained into us, the way we work, the way we talk, the way we challenge ourselves, everything. So to go in and say that, because I remember when one of the, even the leaders themselves, I'm talking about the VP, the senior vice president, said, oh, because of Agile, fail fast. They said that. And then they said, and they told them, it's like, oh, when you bring new technology, it's okay to go in and try new things, right? Because you're trying to get everybody to break out. But guess what? The first thing that security went in, because there's this new product coming that they want to test and everything, so security relaxed their hold a little bit in order for them to try this thing, and it failed. Guess who got dinged? Security did. And so what is that teaching them? You know what? I heard fail fast, go in and do this, but as soon as I failed, what happened? I got dinged. So that is what you're running into. So to his point, it's a problem that we all have right now, and it's a change in behaviors. People it's not the technology.
So to add to that, actually, if you take things in smaller chunks, you have less probability of failure.
That is one of the problems that Agile solved.
Exactly.
Was the risk due to go live events that were really far apart.
Exactly. So now what's happening is definitely every 6 months or probably every 3 months, technology is changing, right? So if you
Every week.
Right, so every day something changes, right? So you got to monitor the news. So something came up today, or Nokia and NVIDIA, they're doing something, right? Okay, so we'll see what happens in 60. But anyways, so the time frames are getting shorter and shorter, right? So it's not waterfall or agile per se, but the time frame itself is getting shorter, right? So the faster you can change, the better chance you have.
It's like, why even code?
No, you got to go. Right? So
That's why people do vibe coding.
So we can have that debate. But yeah, so vibe coding is like an extreme form of extreme coding. They had like pair programming, right? So now the pair happens to be an AI. But anyways, we can debate that.
You finish your point?
Yes. I think there's a question behind it.
Yeah, I remember that you made, and it's very valid, finding a problem that solved. But this year has been a particularly good example of things going high speed without any reason. I'm talking about video generating models. What problems does a video generating models solve? No, it's just fun. People like generating models.
I disagree with that. Like, from an enterprise perspective, being able to create content, like from your documentation, for example, and making it in a way that is more consumable. Like we have seen, like with webinar, that webinar, like for example in the enterprise, a webinar or a podcast has more weight than a white paper. Creating a short, like an image is worth 1,000 words, just to take it that way. A lot of companies were using marketing agencies to create content for their website, videos or things from TikTok. Well, now that could be done by tier 1 companies. Now with these models, you can create something much faster, high quality for any companies, and now you can be on the market. You can promote yourself in a way that you could not do before. So I agree. For me, like it's more like the agentic that is one. Where I think like over this year we've seen people running towards agentic without a clear reason why they would go for agentic. Like if you are in the insurance domain and you are processing claims daily, you process it sequential. You do A, B, C, D. It's a very deterministic pipeline. You don't have a decision. Well, you have decisions, but the decisions are not going like to go and look somewhere else. Now, deep research, that's a perfect example for a need for agentic. You don't know where the solution, like the information is. So you need to go and grab the information from a lot of places. I think what I've seen this year, a lot of people, both on the vendor side and on the enterprise side, hearing the word agentic, first of all, there is no clear definition of what agentic is. Chatbot tend to be agents, like in a lot of cases. But I think that that's where the biggest problem has been this year, is that, again, we have this new buzzword. It used to be Bitcoin. We had crypto and everything else, or data wearers, big data. Agent is the one now. Everyone needs to do it because of FOMO, again. But there is not really a real value that is going to be provided for a lot of use cases. But yet, they are investing the money and the time to try to use that technology. What do you think about that one?
Well, yeah, that's really the big question I'm trying to figure out myself. It's just fascinating. Aside from enterprise adoption of these video generating models, it's really a phenomenon that started. The dawn was, in my opinion, with Sora. That was December 2024, and by now we have so many models. And when you go to social media, for example, it's the mass. It's everybody. It's not just big companies. It's everybody. You post a still image, within seconds, boom, you have a video. Somebody just retorts with a nice, funny way of communication. It's like a different style of communicating. People communicate. This new generation doesn't communicate the way we did 20 years ago.
But I would say as well that, the university I studied in Scotland, we did, for example, with agents, we were researching agents in their late 90s. Same with video generation, same with NLU. If you see the paper, All You Need Is Attention, which is a paper that led to GPT, that's 2017. It took 5 years for it to go from academia to the mass public. I think the biggest difference now is the rate or the speed at which the evolution is going. From 1956 and the Dartmouth collaboration to the early 2000s, we did this kind of an evolution in AI. Then with early 2000 to 2012, you have this much done because compute and everything. And then now it's like this. Like you have more data that is created every day compared like to what was there before. You have more compute. Like the Moore's law is continuing like to be true. And actually, I think last time I checked, we were 50 times ahead of where they thought we would be by now in terms of compute. Unless these things change, we're going like to see this acceleration, and there is no way of controlling at this point. I think you want to leave. So I will stop there.
Yeah, we'll have to wrap it up, but great.